I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:03 PM. Uh, First item on the agenda are just comments and announcements from members of the committee. Anybody have anything for us?
Brad and I participated in the review of the proposals for the consultant.
Yeah, well,
But is that on the agenda?
Yes, we will cover that in depth later, but thank you in advance.
Yeah.
I went to a sort of interesting thing in MIT the other day, which was like a series of TED talks about environment. Some of them, very few of them are relevant to us. But there was one or two that were some of the kind of local systems for making use of methane gas from smallish landfills, which is hard to do. And let's see, that was the most interesting one. A bunch of dreamers.
We need those.
Oh, yeah. We need them.
I was at the annual meeting for the Green Energy Consumer Alliance Group, and they mobilized heavily to help defeat this House bill that would have killed funding for Mass Save and other entities. So that was a big success.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on in the agenda to meetings and minutes. First item is approval of the October 15 minutes, which Brad submitted for our review and was included in the meeting packet. I had just one thing to suggest. I apologize for not getting it to you before the meeting. The attendance should probably include Jack Lundgren, who arrived late.
Yep. Fix that again. Oversight.
Did anybody have anything else for the minutes?
I realized that I spelled Shannon's last name right. That was a mistake. Fix that.
Thank you. I'm good at this.
And that was Jack. Lundgren. The D. Figured it.
Yes, with a D. If nobody else had anything on the minutes, do we have a motion? Preferably a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no, the ayes have it. Minutes are approved as amended. And I would like to move on to an experiment with our events and meetings. Instead of reading you the whole sheet in the meeting, which people have found helpful, since a couple of people have wanted the sheet after the meeting, we just sent you the sheet. So the events and meetings, which I would normally read out in this space, are in the meeting packet and have been sent to you. I feel like we might be able to save 5 minutes of meeting, and that might be beneficial to do it this way. Do folks have thoughts on that?
It's beneficial for a couple of reasons, because one is the minutes aren't really digested and approved until weeks later. Necessarily, so if you send them out ahead of time.
Why, I can't believe that Jerry's not on his computer right now, hanging on our every word and waiting eagerly to see all of these events that we want to post for Jerry to show up at. Jerry, by the way, we should point out to you that the permission settings on this meeting are different than in the past. And if you have something to contribute, you'll have to raise your hand and Shannon will have to unmute you before you can unmute yourself. But otherwise it should feel the same as a normal Zoom. Any other thoughts on events and meetings, and or does anybody else have anything that's not on our sheet to add and to let folks know about in the coming month?
What are the most important ones? Let's see.
Welcome, come on in.
There's tomorrow's safe cycling presentation.
Oh, yes, tomorrow's safe cycling presentation, that's on Polar Concord website. And that's when it's at, that's tomorrow, what time?
Tomorrow, 6:30 to 8 at the Goodwin Forum.
Okay. Ooh, that sounds good.
There's an exploratory call about an iron sodium storage battery with CMLP that I'm participating in.
When is that?
It's in my email someplace, but I don't have my phone, I left it at home. So, sorry. I can let you know, there is a company that has, utility scale technology, which is different than lithium ion. It may be well suited for him.
Is this more a safer battery potentially, or what is it?
It's one that's not intended to charge and discharge as rapidly as a lithium ion. I think it's a slower to charge and slower to discharge.
Oh, okay.
So I believe,
So
but it's
that's
also very efficient. And it's safer, and it's using non-strategic
sodium
materials.
iron batteries?
I believe so, yeah. The company's called Inlight. That's all I know about it. We haven't had a kickoff meeting yet. But maybe nothing, but who knows?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any meetings or events to announce? So reflect on whether this system of having it in the meeting packet works for you, and if you have any further thoughts on it, let us know next meeting maybe.
Sure.
Otherwise, we'll endeavor to save a few minutes of meeting time by doing it this way moving forward. The next thing that we would like to move to are chair updates. The first thing, I apologize for the length. I want to just talk for a few minutes about public participation, how we deliberate, and how we talk amongst ourselves online. It's been a long time since we've had a level set on public participation and how we deliberate in compliance with the open meeting law. So I've been feeling for the past couple of months that it's important that we reinforce the norms and the rules that the Climate Action Committee will have regarding communications. I have two particular areas of concern that I would like to address. The first is how we accept and respond to public comment in meetings. And the second is how we communicate when we are outside of meetings. The purpose of the open meeting law is to eliminate much of the secrecy surrounding the deliberations and decisions on which public policy is based. It accomplishes this purpose by requiring open discussion of governmental action at public meetings. The requirements of the open meeting law grow out of the idea that the democratic process depends on the public having knowledge about the considerations underlying governmental action taken by their representatives. The overriding intent of the open meeting law is therefore to foster and indeed to require open discussion of governmental action in public meetings. Concordant with the democratic and transparent philosophy underpinning this law, our committee has had a general disposition toward allowing robust participation by members of the public in our meetings. While we reserve time at the end of all of our meetings for public comment period, we welcome the public to participate fully in all matters on our agenda. When the posted topic is up for discussion, it is the intention of this chair to allow any member of the public to speak up on an issue, to ask questions, or to otherwise enhance the discussion. And the chair shall usually, but not exclusively, seek initial input from members of the committee and from relevant town staff prior to recognizing members of the public. However, the chair reserves the prerogative to recognize members of the public at any time, should it be considered expedient to the matter at hand. When addressing this committee, or any meeting of any public body, members of the public are expected to speak directly to the chair. Members of the public, whether on Zoom or live in the room, should be expected never to address other members of the public in the room or on the call, nor individual members of the committee, but rather shall address their remarks through the chair to the whole committee. It's difficult to remember to do this. But we ask for this rule of decorum not to throttle public participation, but on the contrary, to ensure that every member of our community has a safe and equitable forum to address the actions of our government openly and freely in these meetings. We want our conversations to be free-flowing and constructive acts of deliberation. To ensure this, we must ensure that public participation does not devolve into tangential conversation, argumentative back and forth, or disrespect toward alternative points of view. Unfortunately, I've heard some of that in prior meetings. At times, public comment may stray into less decorous commentary or may shift away from the topic that the speaker was originally addressing and that was posted on our agenda. In the past, we have provided broad countenance for members of the public to make comments that they feel are germane, but who stray from our rules of order, and it's the chair's intention to continue to do this. While reserving the prerogative to rule comments beyond the scope of the conversation or to terminate dilatory or bad faith participation at the chair's discretion, the chair intends to provide wide latitude to members of the public seeking to address the committee. Doing so is a basic article of respect for the people that we serve, and we should carry that respect for the public with us when we listen to public commentary. While the open meeting law permits us to address public comment that is beyond the scope of the agenda, we risk capricious action if we do not establish bright lines for what kinds of comments shall and shall not be responded to. Procedures for public participation must be content neutral or else risk being violative of the law. As a practice, members of this committee must restrain their comments to items which are posted on the agenda of the meeting. Responses to public comment on issues not posted on the agenda shall be ruled out of order. Should public comment arise on topics beyond the scope of the agenda, the correct and adequate response shall be to accept the comment with gratitude and to consider it to be a topic for a future meeting. The best public service that we can provide is to inform the public of our intention to discuss an issue and to allow any and every member of our community to participate in that deliberation, not to respond ad hoc because it suits us in the moment. The same principles apply to open and transparent operations and extend to social media and electronic communications as well. As members of a public body, we must remember that our opinions on the issues relevant to this committee are matters of public concern. For this reason, we must remember that our conversations amongst each other are issues of public interest and are subject to the open meeting law. While frequently we find this law restrictive when it prevents us from effective communication and work, and we get frustrated when we get told open meeting law says you can't do something, we need to remember that the purpose of the open meeting law is something of great value with which we all agree, requiring open discussion of governmental action at public meetings. In particular, email is a pitfall for open meeting law compliance. We are permitted to share things amongst ourselves via email, but there are bright line limits to what we are allowed to do. We are permitted to share items to be placed on the agenda at our meetings without discussing the merits of the agenda items or our opinions about them or why we think those things should be on the agenda. We are permitted to share documents and resources germane to the scope and the work of our committee, but again, without sharing opinions about those documents or resources. We're permitted to discuss meeting schedules. We're permitted to meet socially at Brad's house for a barbecue, but we're not permitted to discuss the business or the items before the committee at those social occasions. We're also permitted to engage in training exercises as a group, even when meeting with more than a quorum of the committee present. When we stray into discussion of why something should be discussed in a meeting, or when we begin to describe the value or quality of a resource, this communication becomes a deliberation, even if nobody else responds to the comment. Even polite acknowledgement of an email sent amongst a quorum of committee members may run afoul of the law, because while it would be permissible to say, thank you for sending a resource, evaluating it to be great or helpful is beyond the limits of the law. Please remember that when it comes to the work of the committee, the rules of decorum and etiquette are markedly different from the rules of decorum and etiquette in your professional and social lives. In particular, if a member of this committee is sent a group email, you do not have an expectation placed on you to reply or to acknowledge that email. Instead, the email sender is trusting you to read it, consider it, and discuss it in a future public meeting. In this realm, we're pretty good about sending information amongst ourselves. Generally speaking, original emails sent among members have been limited to commentary-free distribution of relevant information and talking about the mechanics of the meeting. However, and this is important, where we have sometimes strayed outside the bounds of the open meeting law is in our replies to those emails. In spite of many reminders and admonitions not to reply all to emails, we frequently reply all to an email, and in that reply, risk violative comments. The remedy to this problem is simple. When you send an email to a quorum of our committee, do not put the committee members in the to or the CC fields of your email. If you blind carbon copy the committee, you ensure that accidental and absent-minded violations of the open meeting law will not occur.
So that's, I don't agree with that, because I think it's not transparent. I believe when one communicates in public, it should be, we should see who we're talking to. That risks the reply, but that's why I don't have to use.
If you need to send something to the full committee, the law allows you to do it. And if you feel a need to be transparent that you are sending it to the whole committee, you can BCC the whole committee and say it in the text of the email. Additionally, we're going to retain that as a public record. If anybody ever requests it, it will be available, and that will satisfy our obligations under the open meeting law. The difficulty here is that when I send an email to the group within the bounds of open meeting law, and then somebody sends it back and says, thanks, this is going to be really helpful, that's the problem. And the way to fix that problem is just not to do it. We know that we are having issues with compliance when we do it that way. And so the remedy that is best available to us is to use the BCC field, and we can be transparent in the body of the email instead.
Okay, so it's a requirement to be, is that a requirement to be transparent in the body of the email? This email is going to the following people.
I feel that that satisfies any requirement for transparency, presuming that we are also maintaining it as a record somewhere so that if at some point somebody requests our correspondence, we're able to furnish it. There may be specific instances of communications in bespoke circumstances where you would be best advised to go talk to the town council or the town clerk before you send something.
Yeah.
But as a general policy, if we're doing it that way, we are meeting all of our obligations for transparency. So if for some reason you need to clarify that an email is going to a quorum of the committee or to the full committee, you can accomplish that in the text of the email and not in the CC field. Additionally, please internalize the etiquette rule that every millennial and Gen Zer already knows. The only time it's appropriate to reply all is when you're doing it ironically. Otherwise, reply all is generally considered to be performative, and thus impolite. In our committee, it is also proven on more than one occasion to produce open meeting law violating content. So please, just don't do it. Just don't reply all. And as a sender of an original email, help us to not do that by being mindful of keeping us out of the CC fields so that we keep to it. In recent months, there have been multiple instances of emails sent among members of the public and our whole committee or a quorum of our committee. In situations such as these, it is the responsibility of the individual committee members to identify whether an email includes other people on the committee. And in cases where a quorum of the committee members exists, you must refrain from engaging on the email thread unless you are certain that your participation falls into the narrow set of permissible communications outside of meetings. There are several permissible ways to handle these sorts of conversations. If you're ever unsure, talk to the town clerk's office first, and they will guide you. As a public official, you may feel that you have a social or political responsibility to respond. If you feel that you do, the best public service that you can provide is to respond person to person with the sender, to say what you have to say to them, and then also to make it clear that if an email thread has 4 or more members of this committee on it, the permissible bounds of conversation are severely limited because you have an obligation to deliberate on issues of our committee in open public meetings. Most of the time, the problematic email threads have arisen. Someone chimes in and points out the issue, but that isn't a foolproof system, and careless errors have occurred. The remedy to the problem, again, is to identify best practices more carefully and to do our best to follow them more mindfully. When composing an email, have the focus and mindfulness to remember to BCC us. When replying to an email, be mindful that you are a public official, and even if what you have to say is pithy, it is still an article of public consequence. Last, remember that our Commonwealth's democratic values demand that any opinion you share with your committee members be shared in a public meeting and not in a side conversation. As a committee, we do our best to be accessible, transparent, welcoming, and communicative. It is a privilege to serve with you, just a moment, on a committee with a cohort of people who agree that these qualities are virtues. It hasn't been the case with every public official and governmental body I've encountered over the years and served with. So it's been a real delight to work with all of you. Generally, your attitudes promote an environment where we are welcoming and engaging with all comers, and where we do not need or desire to enforce strict decorum, because these formalities stifle free-flowing participation as much as they help it. However, we must also remember that same calling to inclusion that is embodied in the open meeting law is instilled with these same values. And we must ensure that we're more mindful of best practices when we engage in communications with the public, both in these meetings and in our online presences. Please remember that not every comment requires your response, and that you have a responsibility to know and comply with the open meeting law when it comes to all digital communications.
I'm certainly a believer, but on the question of sharing an opinion, if I send, even if I BCC the committee on a piece of information or something, that's an opinion. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with sharing my opinion to the committee. Because then it's basically asking people to go form their own opinion or to look at something. Is there, I didn't know that open meeting law had something about opinions.
Sharing any form of opinion on the business of the committee could be considered to be violative of the open meeting law. And it is better to say that you wish to discuss something and then have that discussion in an open meeting.
I have a question. So like for tonight, the committee meeting packet, okay, came from you and Shannon. Okay, so I shouldn't acknowledge that. Right, okay. If I want to send something to all the committee, no, I don't have a master list. So if I send something to you, do you send it out to the committee?
You can send it to me.
And you'll send it out?
Yeah.
Okay, as long as something innocent.
And if you wanted to acknowledge that, that is, the committee members were blind copied, so
Right.
even if you replied all. The response was only gonna go to me, Megan, and
Yeah.
Wendy was also copied.
Okay,
So like, there's no way you
And
could
the original
reply
stuff.
to the whole.
yeah,
committee.
okay,
But if you want something to go to the full committee and you don't have everyone's email addresses, you can send it to me and I will send it out like how I sent that guy.
thank you.
And fundamentally, there is not a problem with sharing information among the committee members. It happens every month that we have something that we wanna send to the group, and it's a good thing to be able to send it. We just have to be a lot more careful with how we're treating those communications
Right.
and being cagier about responding to them performatively.
Understood, thank you.
Have there been any problems, in this regard with other committees?
There have been no problems with our committee. That is the limit of my knowledge.
So if we did wanna send it, are you saying, to your point, not having a full list or having you, we can send something to you
Yes.
and you will send it?
Send it to me and say, please send this to the committee,
Right.
and I'll send it.
Okay,
This would be great.
and then in terms of the agenda, you send out a draft, we shouldn't reply all. But if we just send it to you or to you, can it just automatic, or is that a form of like decision making of like what actually gets put on the agenda if it's not set the month before?
No,
What's that
you're
process?
able, like, you and Brad could have one-on-one communication about that, because it's just you two. So if you said, I want to discuss X at the next meeting, you're able to email Brad that. If anyone is uncomfortable about sending an email because you wanna be extra cautious, totally, you could just send it to me. But you're able to respond directly to Brad because it's not a quorum and you're not deliberating. Brad mentioned, I think too, you're able to discuss if you want to put something on the agenda, but not why and your opinion about why you wanted to be on the agenda.
And then if we do BCC, we should explicitly say all committee members are on this email or something, or what's the
I
norm?
actually recommend you put it, I create a email signature for emails going to the committee, and you could put something like that in the signature. I think.
And I don't think you have to do that, because like, if you want to, I think that's good, I think it's transparent, you know who the email is going to. But if someone requests our email correspondence, when you actually look at the, like, if you go to your sent email, not your inbox, it's going to show the BCC line. So it will show who the email went to there, but not in your inbox. But whoever sent the email, it will show who you fully sent it to, whether they were on BCC or not.
Right, it's just more of like an audit
Yeah.
question, like what's the, I think it's like this.
Yeah.
To cover basis.
We have not established a set of norms or practices regarding how to communicate that. If it's the will of the membership of the committee to establish a rule or a norm. I love rules, I love being able to check the box that I followed the rule. If that's something that you guys feel like you wanna do. Then democracy can reign supreme on that point, but as of right now, we do not have an established norm or rule regarding that. I think as a general practice, usually I have either CC'd everybody on the email and said, and so you see that way, and then said, do not reply all. And that has not always worked. So I'm intending to change my practices and to have more email go through Shannon. And when I have to send something, I'll say CIC members and other observers or something like that.
That's clear, yeah.
But,
Like, I don't like BCCing just for that reason, is that someone doesn't know that someone else is on an email, right? But if you call it out explicitly, I think that is best practice. And I apologize for any infractions I've made, because I think it's true. It's
I'm
confusing.
calling no one on the carpet and referring to no particular email
Yeah.
thread. This has been something that's
recurring.
happened a few times.
Yeah, but I do think, I don't want to get overly rulesy, but without sort of understanding what the norms and without having a playbook, it's easy to lapse, right? So I'm more in favor of being very transparent and explicit about like what you should do versus trying to figure it out.
A lot of times I send an email to, a group of people that's on the committee, plus a group of people that are not on the committee. And
That's where it gets tricky.
it gets a little bit messier.
To be honest, the most of the times that it has been messy is when people who are not on this committee have included a quorum of members of this committee on something. So nothing that was instigated by anybody who is here, But we still have a responsibility if there is something going on our issue areas. Amongst a quorum of us, we have to take individual responsibility to flag that and act appropriately. And those are often the messy situations because it's somebody else who's relatively innocently sending something out. But that doesn't change your obligations under the open meeting law. You have to have your deliberations in a public open meeting.
I sort of feel like I'm not a perfectionist. And the fact that someone says, okay, or something, which is a foolish thing to reply all and say that, is like, you know, compared to Trump, it's kind of a joke.
We can at that barbecue that I've invited myself to at your house. We can talk all about the slippery slope when we start having open meeting law violations and it leading to Trump. Is there any other discussion of this? I do want to try to keep us on track with our agenda because it's going to be a full night. Great. I want to give a brief update to the state legislation, which Bob referenced as well during the announcements. House Bill 4744 is for now on ice. To remind all of you where we have been on that legislation, Governor Healy in May filed a bill which was pretty expansive. The aim of which was to reduce energy generation costs and consumer electricity and heating costs. That was the intention of the legislation and how it was presented publicly. In that bill, there were some things that were good, there were some things that were a mixed bag, there were some things that were bad. And our committee pointed out in testimony to the Joint Committee on Telecom, Utilities and Energy at the public hearing in July, that there were a number of things which we feel would have been better had they been included, but they weren't. That bill was looked at over the course of the summer and fall by the Joint Committee on Telecom, Utilities and Energy. And in a bit of a rush 2 weeks ago, the chairman of that committee signaled an intention to report out a bill which included pieces of Governor Healy's thoughts. It was not a straight redraft of her bill. Her bill actually continues to sit in the committee, but it included parts of her bill as well as parts of other legislators' bills, rank and file legislators who had had ideas, combined those bills, redrafted them, and included as the centerpiece element of the legislation a rollback of the Commonwealth's 2030 emissions mandates, making them essentially advisory, taking their teeth out and ensuring that the Commonwealth bears no legal liability whatsoever to live up to the emission mandates. That bill went over like a lead balloon in the environmental advocacy community. Activists, including Mothers Out Front, Sierra Club, Mass Purge, a lot of progressive and social justice allies to the environmental community all stormed the State House and made it clear that bill would not be countenanced by environmental activists. And as a result, and this is a really rare case of activists actually stopping something once the powers that be in the House of Representatives decide they want to do something, they won the day. Although the Joint Committee on Telecom, Utilities and Energy unanimously pushed House Bill 4744 out of committee, it sent it along another step in the legislative process. Pretty much as soon as it got to the House Ways and Means Committee, the Ways and Means chairman said that they're going to pause and think more carefully. And the whole point of this bill was to reduce consumer energy, electricity costs, methane costs before the winter heating season. It was 23 degrees in Concord this morning. They are too late. So I think that that will take a lot of the momentum and energy that was behind that bill for the last 10 days or so out. Out of it, and probably since they're not going to be able to start the winter heating season with consumer cost savings, they will probably still bring this issue back at some point, but in a more calculated way, more careful way. And so I think that I think that we should consider whether to take a second bite at this apple. And to, as a committee, get in touch with our hometown delegation, both reps and Senator Barrett, and also with the Ways and Means Committee, because that is a fresh set of eyes on this issue. And they haven't heard from us. So we had expressed a number of thoughts and ideas in July of what we would want to see in this realm. And I think that the time would be right to renew that advocacy. So I wanted to see if there was a desire to say anything in the wake of this panic that we've had over this bill over the last 2 weeks, whether we want to wade in on it again.
The new version, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's right for Concord and for our delegation or legislation to advocate for a much better bill. And definitely heard through this process that you very well spoke about or outlined that a lot of the legislators were put on as co-sponsors at the 11th hour without their knowledge. And it wasn't until the advocates told them like, hey, you know, Cataldo included, you're on this bill and it's not a good bill. And so they are kind of angry about it and called to get their names off of it. So I think, you know, it's the right thing to do. And I think they're sort of positioned to sort of want to do the right thing too.
I think there's a bunch of stuff in that bill that were put in there by energy lobbyists, like, canceling Concord's fossil-free ban, which wasn't gonna save anybody any money. I'd love to know how that bill got written.
well, so the bill doesn't exactly do that. What it does is it says that the town can't benefit from the Mass Save program, which that bill also decimates. Significantly reduces the funding of to begin with, so nobody's gonna be benefiting from the Mass Ed program. But specifically, homeowners in Concord doing projects would still be able to avail themselves of Mass Save under that language. But if you had, say, hypothetically, a town-owned affordable housing unit that wanted to weatherize or put in air source heat pumps, say, they would not be able to avail themselves of Mass Save under that version of that legislation. But Mass Save was also going to be significantly reduced. So I'm not sure how much anybody would have used it, which is, in my mind, a bigger issue. We gotta accelerate what we're doing with Mass Save, not roll it back. Do other folks have thoughts on what to do, how to do it, what our time frame should be? Alternative opinions not to do anything on this?
I'm not sure whether it's sort of part of our mission to do this lobbying at the State House or not. I don't object to it, but if we do, I think we should address both the governor's bill and the Cusack bill. Because he was sort of trying to get it in front of the governor's bill, but the governor's bill, as you said, is still there. And presumably the governor is gonna try to seek to move it. And it seems to me it's an opportunity for us to make some general points without getting necessarily I wouldn't think we really need to do a rewrite of the Cusack bill. But to make the main points that need to be made that cover both of them.
How would we best deliver this? Would we want to be sending a letter to the committee, trying to get the select board to send a letter on behalf of the town, which is, you know, sometimes more of a lift, but also often better received and because it's a higher profile committee? Would we want to be doing media? How would you all want to play this?
You know, what you-
I'm curious about, yeah, to that point, what the answer to the first question you asked, just sort of what is our mandate or purview? And it also seems like if it is to push on this or express an opinion, or wouldn't it be more effective also to sort of see what other, like, kind of maybe have a joint municipal coalition of advocacy?
Sure.
So I just, I don't know.
But I advocate to the extent that that some legislation, this legislation or any other legislation is counter to the mission of our climate, achieving success on our climate action. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much to do.
I think you're right that if there's a group of towns that wanted to put something together, we could sign it without necessarily having to be in charge of structuring it and
Yeah.
authoring it. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of, you know, joint statements that were filed, and we could figure out whether some of them included town boards.
Well, the vehicle that normally exists for that kind of lobbying is MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And they had opined on the original bill, Governor Healing's bill. I don't know whether they waded in on this controversy in the last 2 weeks. We could certainly put out a feeler and see, do some research about that or any other groups. I wouldn't hold out high hopes for anything if it didn't come from MAPC, which is not necessarily, you know, an environment first organization. It's a coalition of municipal governments.
I think the reason to do something rather than to do nothing is that they're threatening our climate goals. Like 2030, we're about to write a plan for 2030. So if we sort of have to speak up and say, wait a minute, we're writing a plan for this and we're planning to synchronize with the state, probably. So we're really not opposed to the state suddenly yanking its limits. I think limits is the technical term for what we're talking about.
I think one of the ways that we could best articulate an interest in that would be through an op-ed somewhere like in the Bridge, say, where we kind of put down a marker as a committee on the nexus between state policy and what we feel we need to do as a community. We could certainly work up something like that over the next month or two. And I don't think that we need to act necessarily urgently to be in touch with Ways and Means. Even if the House were to decide that there was a path forward instantly, it will be a long time before the Senate goes along with what they do. And we would have some time if the House suddenly magically decided to act after deciding not to. So I think we would have some time. If we want to sit with this for a month, maybe, and then come back in December and think more carefully about communicating to legislators. We could do it that way if we wanted to.
So I guess I'm curious, because you're saying that the whole point of the bill was for heat cost reduction. And it's now not seasonal.
Yeah, they're too late, right?
And the state's current climate goals are in alignment with our town goals. So I don't see any further action unless
No.
we're under threat of having those goals fall out of sync.
I think that there is a threat present. That not just Chairman Cusack, but other policymakers on the state level have signaled that the resistance that they have been met with by the current administration in Washington, particularly when it comes to procuring offshore wind, is creating problems of compliance with these emissions mandates. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen much of a plan B out of Governor Healy's administration. She has tried very hard to procure domestic offshore wind. And it would appear from the bill that she filed in May that her plan B is let's build nuclear plants. That's what's in the bill. So I think that there is a concern here, not just embodied in Rep. Cusack, but also the other people who he represents and is speaking for, that they want to get out in front of any criticism or flack that they might take if they simply can't meet the 2030 goals.
Which is likely to happen no matter what. So it's, in a sense, nobody goes to jail if we don't make these rules. But we don't give up on the goals 5 years ahead of time.
I think that's the posture that a lot of people in the environmental movement effectuated over the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
So regarding running something for the bridge, I think we should, but I think we should communicate with the community about our work on the climate action plan. And I think it would muddy the waters, also communicate with the community on why some bills in Massachusetts are not a good idea. I think we should try to communicate with the community about what we're doing here. Try to keep it positive. I know.
In spite of being the one who brought it up first, you haven't had much to say.
Seems like there's quite an organized amount of groups keeping an eye on this. I'm not certain that we can, I mean, it's great to advocate all the environmental, might not be the best use of our time. But then again, like Brad says, there's a lot to do everywhere here.
So unless anybody is rushing to make a motion, sounds to me like the consensus around the table is that we should watch this. We should see if there have been explicit communications from governmental bodies to the legislature, see whether it makes sense to attach ourselves to that next month when we meet again. And consider over the course of the month, as we start getting into the climate action plan, seeing what our workloads are gonna be, what is it really gonna make sense for us to do? Do you think that we have some time, that we don't have to act in a rush, the way it was feeling, say, a week or 10 days ago? Does that sound like a fair encapsulation of how we're thinking about on this?
Does it seem reasonable to maybe invite somebody from, say, like Senator Barrett's office to come and chat with us at one of our meetings? And talk about where the state is in terms of priorities.
We could absolutely do that, and perhaps we should. I would be even more eager to get somebody from the House side to come and explain the mess, because I think that Senator Barrett in particular, the Senate generally, have their own climate agenda, which is significantly different from the one articulated by either the governor or the House chairman. So it may be that we do that in the coming months, but I think we should also be treating the House as a separate entity with separate thinking and ideas, and have somebody come and make an apologia of some kind.
We're gonna get behind.
We already are.
There's a lot to do.
Catherine, did you want to speak to, any of the articles that you had sent around?
Maybe we should leave them, but I don't, last, I'm just worried about timing.
Okay.
I mean, yes, they're, and to the point of, what's the mandate of the committee and. But just a lot of things are happening clearly in the environmental world, the global state and the national, international. So I just sent around some to the committee. I'm sure everyone's aware of it. And some of it, I think, just what's happening at the top and others, can set the stage for our work and planning, but I don't think it's. Yeah, if we have time, let's talk this.
If we have time, we'll come back to it at the end, assuming there's no objection, and if we do not have time. Everybody read that stuff. It's pretty good. It's pretty good
I
stuff.
got it. Did I get it? When did you send it?
At the very end of the agenda.
Yeah, it was emailed to everybody, and it's also the links to those three items are the last page of the meeting packet.
Oh, okay, so yeah, cause that, okay,
Yeah, I mean, basically the three topics, and there's more, but there were kind of newsy headlines in the last few weeks was Bill Gates wrote a memo about his views, and it was quite long and extensive, and in fact, I need to reread it, because I sort of did a full skim.
It's a long
It's
post.
very long.
They were putting economics above, climate progress, wasn't it?
It was also kind
I
of.
mean, I
focused
didn't
on
read it, but that's the
health.
gist of it.
Yeah.
Human health and economics.
Human health, and I think it's all I think it's a false dichotomy because it's all interrelated, and so I think that was sort of why I brought it up here, is sort of thinking about how we move forward, especially with the climate action plan and how we frame things. I don't think health has been as one of the, pillars in the past, but just wanted to sort of bring that into the discussion, for the committee, either, tonight if we have time, but just generally as we move forward. Because as we talk about emissions and pollution, that's directly impacting human health, and that's sort of where he's framing it. So while I wasn't happy about his stance in terms of how it was taken on and the media headlines that just spiraled, I think some folks in the environmental world were kind of had some discontent. I also think that there was a lot of really good thinking that went in, and I think some of it was misconstrued. The Sierra Club was a little bit of a hit piece, but I think there's also something there that's interesting. Maybe a little less relevant to our work, but just in terms of thinking about, how environmental groups interact with each other and where we sit with them and interact. And then, of course, COP, there's, headlines coming out every day about what's happening there, and that's been interesting to see as well. So anyway, those are the three topics, but I do think that, as we talk, we should sort of keep those on the radar and think about how they do impact our work, especially with the climate action plan.
Great. It's time to start thinking about next year. And we have two things that we need to think carefully about. First, preparing our annual report, which is going to be due in a couple of months. And also to consider our preparations for annual town meeting. Now, those of you who looked at our event sheet or remembered from last month, we are all, I hope, saving December 13th, which is a Saturday at 9 a.m. here in the townhouse for a training to be run by the town clerk and other folks in town, officials in town, all about how to prepare for town meetings. And these effective governance trainings are a series that we're going to be having all year. I think that they are mostly directed at the leadership of the committee, i.e. the chair. But we are also expected to rotate the chair and the clerk every year. So it's a good idea for all of us to participate in these, because you never know when you might be the chair. Brad, did you have thoughts that you wanted to bring forward about town meeting, or to kind of start a conversation about it?
I had asked you about it, I don't know what we would propose. I don't know, there's not a specific ask of the community that I know about. that would be ready to do it, I don't know. I just thought it was worth raising the issue because December is the time when something should come together if there was. Um,
Well, you've been doing this on this committee and this earlier
Yeah.
committee for a little while. How do you feel about process around reviewing the potential articles on the warrant and opining on those things?
but, I think it's good to, that happens more like in the spring, but, that usually works out all right. Meaning, we know what other people in town are proposing and may take a position.
We now have available to us the full timeline for the year, so we know dates certain of when the warrant opens, when it
Right.
closes. When if we wanna put something in the book.
Yeah.
When we have to have that in. So we have all of those dates, and if we want to be intentional about some kind of process around town meeting, we could choose to be. We can ensure that we're devoting an adequate amount of meeting time in advance to review consideration of whether to do something, even though we don't know at this juncture what it would be.
Right.
Do we want to build that into our plans in January and February and March?
Yeah.
It would actually just be January and February because the date of our March meeting is going to be after the deadline for submitting things for the book. So it would actually just be January and February probably.
Yeah.
So one issue that might be interesting to talk about is similar to what Brookline did with embodied carbon requirements for town procurement.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Would we, you're thinking we would consider trying to set something up for this year on that?
Saying it's an option.
So I think Brookline did it specifically with concrete. I'm not sure if it was all materials. I think when I looked at it, it was specific to low carbon concrete.
We could, if we had a proposal that we wanted to seriously pursue. We've got the timeframe, right? The warrant's gonna open toward the end of December. It'll be open for about a month. We do have the dates certain, I just don't have them. I don't have them with me. I have my phone with me, but I'm not gonna scroll them to get the exact dates, but it's end of December to end of January is where we would have to stage it. In terms of at least getting it into the warrant if we wanted to pursue something like that.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, one doesn't have to do something like that at town meeting. One can't do that if we want to constrain the municipality, but that then brings it up in front of everybody. One could also come up with a policy, sort of like the solar policy that's been discussed about procuring low carbon materials and get the town bodies to buy in without town meeting. But probably pluses, pros and cons, either.
How does that process work? The non-town meeting? By
I don't know, I think the select board could take something up, that is like a town policy. Doesn't have to be,
it has to be initiated by the select board, so it has to be something
probably, have to be put part of that.
that we could advise on, certainly, or suggest.
As related to procurement, I'm not sure if that has to get vetted by the finance committee too. I'm I'm not 100% sure who sets our financial policies, if that's.
I don't know.
Select board,
I think we're
FinCom,
on the way.
yeah.
Okay, so that impacts cost, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like what's great about town meeting is that we could look at the exact language that Brookline used. It's really great to be able to piggyback off each other with that. And I think I'd have to believe that their language is to use lower carbon concrete when feasible, not in every situation, no matter what, because eventually you're gonna run into an issue with costs. So we can check out exactly the language they use too.
We should probably also, just as a matter of due diligence, right, figure out. Are our staff already endeavoring to do this kind of thing? You know, where do we stand? What's the status on this? Is it not on the radar screen at all, or is this something that, folks are already thinking about? We should find that out.
Right.
I mean,
Do you want some homework?
I have asked Public Works that at a public meeting with the women voters, and they didn't seem to be sourcing any alternative materials.
Okay. Interesting.
And I was mostly in reference to the alternative, like road construction materials,
Okay.
not concrete specifically.
Rubberized pavement, it's one of my champion, I thought rubberized pavement, we don't use it here. They use it in like Waltham, they don't experiment with a couple of parking spaces,
Yeah,
but that's a low emission type of asphalt.
Well, maybe that's actually the way to go then, because we're about to spend millions of dollars on, we already started, but on the road. We just passed all this money for
Yeah.
roads. So maybe that's,
I don't know why.
I don't know if
we
the timing works
I don't
out.
know why we don't do a demonstration project at the minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's used widely in other states, Rhode Island uses it. Places that have similar freeze thaw cycles use it. It's proven effective.
And it's low emission, and does it also the lifespan longer?
Exactly, and it's quieter.
so
It's like
this,
a win-win-win.
Yeah.
this is something that could go into the climate action plan, is adopting policies for using that. So that's a long, a couple of year thing, but
We're actively trying it at least, versus just saying, oh, it's too hard to change. I think there are probably not a lot of vendors,
yeah.
so it makes it more challenging.
Do you know anybody who can speak knowledgeably about it?
There's the Rubber Pavement Association, it's a national lobbying group.
Who knew?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure somebody from there would tie in and speak about the product.
I can't recall the name, but you had sent that report on rubberized pavement.
There's a lot of resources online on that.
Yeah. But there
That's just another example. There are green architects who are very knowledgeable about green building materials, not just cement. For instance, if you use aluminum that was made in Canada, it's all produced via hydro. But now there's a big tariff on Canadian aluminum. So, I mean, there's a lot of examples of things we could be using, I think.
Is there any way to identify a generic category that we could, at town meeting, say we propose that the town develop a policy that whenever materials, are being procured, they ought to go through some screening? So we don't have to like solve all the details.
I may be able to find some resources.
Right.
I know of one company, but I don't know what they charge to do this type of thing, but there may be more public resources about it. Yeah, I think there was the Green Building Association too, that's a nonprofit. That probably has a list of things.
I like the idea of including building materials, paving materials. Anytime the town procures anything for which there might be a better climate solution, they ought to consider it.
So I think this is something to bring to the select board, rather than, before going to a town meeting. you would want to be on the same team as everybody in the town and have them not feel like, this committee wants to, you know. We don't want to antagonize, we want to work with the people and save money and do the right thing.
Yeah, it should be part of our toolkit that we're probably not using,
Right.
those resources. But I'm no expert in what the town's doing.
So it may be that the best path forward on this is to, in the coming months, craft some kind of specific idea of what we want the scope of this to be on materials, and to present it as a concern to the relevant town departments and probably the select board. Does that sound like the way forward on something like this?
Well, I don't think we have, like we said, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. I think we have to find people who actively have this information. And have the select board consider what they want to do with it.
And if it's something that can just be put into the climate action plan, as part of this contract that we're already doing, then that makes sense. They might, it's such a large firm that's doing the climate action plan, that they might have a staff with this knowledge.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. I think there are 3,000 people at that firm or something like that. Yeah. They should know about this. I'm just a little rusty on the name of the trade organization.
Right, well, let's keep this then as top of mind.
Yeah, I'll send it to Shannon and then she can distribute it. When I find it.
Is it worth proposing something broader that like, you know, like City of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that is all a government approach in dealing with climate change? So every agency must consider climate change in everything they do. So could we just say we like the town to consider implications of climate change in everything they do, including purchasing materials, constructing buildings, so on and so forth?
Well, in our correspondence with the select board during the goal setting process, we did kind of nudge in that direction. The encouragement that we provided was that the select board in a more methodical and systematic fashion advance its agenda, the whole goal set, not just sustainability, the whole goal set, through its intercourse with boards and committees. So the encouragement is, in all things that you do, ensure that the work of your committee, your department, your staff underneath you are in alignment with the goal setting of the select board. So we nudged in that direction at the beginning of this year. We could certainly take another step if we want to be more specific about sustainability. I think that we could do that. I think we would just want to be very communicative with you about exactly what it is we're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be specific. I mean, this year, the select board said, get your climate action plan, get that together, and that's gonna give the town direction. And, you know, help build that roadmap. So just be conscious of, there's a lot going on in town right now, so you're talking about something new, you have the climate action plan to do. Just be mindful of what you've gotta do and where we're at right now, that's all.
The climate action plan's, you know, about a year away, I think.
Supposed to be done by the end of this year.
And
We've got 75 grand that's supposed to get done by the end of this fiscal.
End of this calendar
by
year?
June,
Fiscal year.
right?
Well,
That's fiscal year, so that's the
Well,
June.
so what did you hire your consultant to do?
Well,
Or is it supposed to be spent this year?
I don't think it has to be spent by the end of this fiscal year.
Well, I mean, so the.
The plan is gonna get done, but the plan will not be published by June 30th.
Yeah, I guess my point is, the select board's goal was the plan, get going on the plan, right?
Yeah.
Because the town needs a plan, so we're gonna use that direction. I mean, that's the main goal right now that we were talking about, but
Yeah,
you,
but say the plan doesn't come out and recommend this all government approach. And I suppose it will, but it may not. So. What's the concern about urging the town to do it before the plan comes out? It's a pretty simple statement. right?
I mean, we are trying to promote all communities to cross collaborate with one another to sort of, make sure that those kind of connections are happening, but. I just, I don't know, you're talking about something for town meeting or a policy, I'm not quite sure where you're going right now, you started talking about town meeting.
We're spitballing right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about next year in November.
I was thinking, you have to ask them about materials, as to ask about everything else. So,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
Well, I mean, you can do some homework, trying to figure out what does that mean, what are the implications for the town.
well, like you say, the federal government definitely had that for their procurement at one point in time, I don't know whether it still exists. They definitely had that in about green procurement.
You gotta get the next agenda.
We very much do. Before we move on, we also owe an annual report coming up soon. Is it a fine course of action for everybody if I draft an annual report for your perusal and ratification for next meeting?
Sure.
That would be great.
Okay.
And we have previous annual reports in Word form if they're helpful to do that.
I know just where to find them.
Okay.
Great. Megan, are you asleep or are you awake? You're here.
I'm
Welcome.
here. Good evening, everyone. Megan Zamudo, Deputy Town Manager. In your packet this evening, you have a staff report from our office for the month of November. I will briefly go through the items. As you know, I have been talking about the green community reporting for the last several months, and I'm happy to say that the town of Concord has completed that. It was an effort that relied on data sources and tracking from across the organization. And, we were able to submit that. So more to come. They review it, is my understanding, and follow up with some questions. And that's pretty typical. So we'll see, what comes back and what needs to be fine-tuned. Second, we continue our work on our MVP SUASCO action grant. We are meeting twice a month. We have another meeting. Our second meeting of November is going to be early next week. We have been shifting gears to kind of from some general administration to working on the outreach strategy, and we're really being led by the expertise from ORS. They're taking the lead in using some of their existing communication platforms and relationships to start that communication effort. We're also started in the very early stages of planning a Concord hosted forum, which Shannon can maybe talk more about, but I believe that is scheduled for March in Harvey Wheeler. Number 3 is our decarbonization roadmap. This is, I wrote in the note here that there was some follow-up data requests. Those have been resolved as of today. I had a meeting with Power Options and submitted some of the final pieces. They do expect to get a roadmap back to us in the next 4 to 6 weeks, but it is the holiday time, so I think we should potentially understand that might take a little time during this season. But my understanding is that our pieces are in for that, so that is moving along. I'll leave 4 to the end because Shannon can report on that, and skip over to a few kind of good news stories here about some of our climate action and resilience plan in action. And so I'm sure you are all hearing about some of the time of day rate information that's going out. This is an effort that's designed to be revenue neutral. The light plant won't collect more revenue than the prior year, but they're going to be charging customers based on the true cost of energy during specific time periods. And so there's information on the town webpage about this. This is an item that came out of the Climate Action Plan from 2020. And we also recorded a podcast about it and have a conversation with myself and the director of the light plant. So if people are interested in learning more, that these resources are linked in the report. Also, one thing I also did not include here is that the just last week, CMLP replaced their final electric meter to be a smart meter. And that was also an item that was in the climate action plan. And we celebrated a little bit at our senior management meeting on Monday, because it's taken quite a long time, but it is complete as of early last week. We also have some news on the stormwater utility, and as you know, this is an effort that has gone to town meeting twice now, first to set it up and second last year to vote on a budget for the utility and a fee source. And so this is an enterprise that's dedicated funding mechanism capable of funding responsible stormwater management within the community. So this is going to be rolled out in early 2026, likely in January, and you'll be hearing more about this new utility in town. Other communities in the Commonwealth use it. It will help us plan more and be more proactive about maintaining our stormwater infrastructure. And we also recorded a podcast on this, and we're going to have it air, I think, after Thanksgiving. And it's a conversation with the Public Works Director and one of our senior engineers, who will talk more about why we're doing this and what it means for people. And this is an item that was also highlighted in our climate action plan. I swear this is not a talking about the podcast update, but the third one is we did just put one out on the Sister City partnership with Nanai Japan. And in that, we talked a lot about climate change in Japan and some of the impacts of that country and how they're feeling it across the community and everyday life. And so I've been joking with guests on the podcast that I'm turning every podcast into a sustainability podcast, because it really impacts, it's touching everything we're working on. And we're really trying to think of things through that lens. So I will turn it over to Shannon to talk about a conference she attended recently that included further discussion on embodied carbon, among other things. Shannon?
Yeah, and just to add on that MVP action grant, the date hasn't been finalized at Harvey Wheeler yet, but I will send that out. Once it is finalized, it will be towards the end of March 2026. And because Concord is managing the funding for this grant, this is meant to be like the main outward facing kickoff event for this grant. And then we're also looking to move around the watershed for other events.
Yeah.
So I will send the date out for that once it's finalized. And then, yes, I attended the Climate Beacon Conference in Boston. That was a few weeks ago at the end of October. I don't have a ton to add, but the Secretary of the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Rebecca Tepper, made opening remarks, and she mainly spoke about the Mass Ready Act. And then I also attended a session that focused on embodied carbon, and I know in our presentation in October at this meeting, they spoke a lot about the resources that the Carbon Leadership Forum had to offer, and they mainly led that presentation, so I was able to learn more about what other cities and towns are doing. That's when I learned a bit more about what Brookline is doing.
Looks like Jerry would like to chime in.
Yeah, hang on 1 second. Should be able to unmute.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Let me get my video on so you see. So thought I had it there. So
Yeah, Jerry.
this is Jerry Frankel, 132 Jenny Dugan Road. Megan, I have a question for you. First of all, thanks for the updates on all the various things you've got going. There's a lot of stuff happening. I'm especially interested to get the roadmap and see what they're talking about there. So that's great to hear that. I wanted to ask what's happening with the ESCO contract.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have too much of an update. This is a major priority for the town manager, and we discussed it at a recent meeting. Um, we're looking at, instead of, I think I mentioned this at a previous meeting, but for a while over the summer, we were looking at doing a request for qualifications for an ESCO firm.
Right.
And that, I think that model is still available to us, but there is this other model to contract with this other, with some other organization that could provide the same services. And so we are looking into that. And there's actually a webinar tomorrow, I think, that our team is going to attend to figure out if this is a fit for Concord. And so, I hope to have more of an update at a future meeting. And it is still a priority. But this month, I'd say the focus has been more on some of these other projects that you see. But I understand that this is also critical.
Okay. I'll look forward to getting the update, next month, and hopefully things will move along nicely with that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Brad.
In pursuing the options on ESCO, are the town-owned affordable housing units within the scope of that auditing process?
The town owned, which are you referring to?
All of any of them?
Of affordable housing? So do you mean like we were just going to include our properties, which are municipal buildings and also school properties. So are you?
So housing units would not be within the scope of that. And if we wanted to think about emissions in affordable housing, we would probably need assistance from other town committees to get data on what we use in those units. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure which housing units. I mean, we do own agricultural lands that we lease to, we lease some properties to farmers, but we are not owners of additional affordable units at this time, unless I'm missing something.
Well, what I'm trying to get at, and I apologize for being ignorant. We are very proud to have new air source heat pumps going into affordable housing units in town.
The housing authority,
Yes.
yeah, which is not town.
Okay, so I'm using the wrong words. What I want to ensure is that we are watching what is happening in affordable housing units. What's the mechanism by which we're going to be able to do that?
What's the mechanism for how the town will watch what's happening for the affordable housing units?
Yeah, because they are a part of the picture in thinking about our long-term emission reduction.
Sure.
And
As our
not
resident
incentivized to do the same things that, say, single family housing unit owners are incentivized to do.
Yeah. Green Energy Consumer Alliance just completed putting solar on affordable housing. They partnered with Resident Energy, but those grants have gone away. They lost the ability, that was an IRA type of grants, I believe. So there was some pathway available that is gone.
Yeah, so maybe in the climate action plan, coordinating with CHA or, they're just one. And rental units in general. They're all, important to deal with, whether or not they're affordable.
That's right.
And they're big shops, but so that should be part of our climate action plan.
Or, Brad, I would also just suggest, Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust is our leader for sort of organizing all affordable housing in town.
Yeah.
This is a good conversation with him to make sure that any development is gonna be green, which I think it already is. But I also, when they're doing buy now, I don't know how they're selecting those properties and what. But it's worth a conversation about the policies that I think it's good.
Yeah, I sort of take it as an article of faith that new construction is gonna be
Well, yes, it
fossil
would
fuel
be,
free.
but- Should
But
be.
we're gonna need to deal with retrofitting of a lot of things as well, and those are gonna be costly to do piece by piece.
And so, yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
we'll keep that in mind for the future as well, and I'll try to get more informed questions in front of us in the future.
I have a question for Megan, following up on the report, about the Green Communities Program, which is great that you got the report in. When will we be applying for some Green Communities money to do a municipal project, probably with a deadline in March or something like that?
You know, our thought was to do the ESCO first, you know, and so that hasn't happened. But I certainly wouldn't rule it out. And you know, I have plans to connect with our facilities manager to see if there's something on his radar that we think would
Okay.
that would be a match. Yeah.
Is there a funding cycle for the MP2? What's it called? Brad, do you remember the MP? It's the next phase.
Oh yeah, yes. Thank you, Wendy. I didn't mention that. But yes, we are up for applying for MVP 2.0. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes, this is another effort that we will be taking on. And we are in a cohort of communities that did our original MVP plan, or you know, did that plan back, I think 2018 or 2019. And so now we're being asked to do a 2.0 project where we receive technical assistance to do additional outreach with different groups in our community. I think that the focus on this is more outreach with groups of people that maybe weren't represented the first time around. And then once you do that, you kind of get a group together and focus on that. And then you get some funds for a seed project. And Shannon and I have both attended some webinars on that for what type of projects could be possible. And MAPC put out that tool with you know, a catalog, and we have no shortage of projects. So I'm sure we'll find something great that we want to focus on. But our application is due in mid-December, so that's on our radar to get that in. And then the project probably won't kick off for I think probably the new fiscal year, Shannon, if that sounds right to you. But this is the way it's operating is kind of strange because they're saying, okay, you have to apply, but they're also saying, Concord, it's your turn, and we're expecting you to apply. So we expect to receive this technical assistance kind of opportunity. But to keep our standing, I think it's with climate leaders, this is a requirement. So that is another project. Actually, you know, and as I say it out loud, I think when we discuss the sequencing, we think that we will be further along in the climate action plan when the funding piece kicks in. So it actually will line up so that we could hope to implement something that has been identified through that. So I think it sounds like a lot all at once, but when you map it all out, it will be planning and then this other piece, MVP 2.0, with additional public outreach and kind of assisting with focusing on a project. Hopefully that wasn't too scattered.
Well, it's excellent that we're able to check several boxes on our incumbent climate planning before we move on to the next one. So thank you for getting a few things to the finish line that really should be celebrated. Shall we talk about the next plan now?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I sent out a memo that should be in your packet outlining our climate action and resilience plan update process, our consultant selection. And so, as you know, we issued a request for proposals in September, seeking qualified consultants, and the proposals were due on October 24th. We did receive 4 qualified proposals, which is, I think, really great. You get nervous sometimes putting these out into the world. Did we get it right? Is anyone going to apply? And the fact that we had 4 firms that met the minimum criteria felt like we had a good group to choose from. The 4 that were included were the first firm. The first was 2 consultants together, Blue Strike Environmental and RVA. Second was Caramita Inc. Third was Kim Lundgren Associates, and the fourth was Weston and Sampson. So for the evaluation process, we had written in the RFP that the town manager would choose a selection committee and discuss that with this committee. Who are the folks where are the areas that we need representation? And so we recommended, based on conversation here, to the town manager that the group include folks from the Climate Action Committee, Transportation Advisory Committee, Natural Resources, Light Plant, and Public Works. And so we did have representatives from those areas. And from this group, we had Bob and Brad participate. And it was, it's definitely time consuming. It takes a while to make sure we're thoroughly vetting the proposals, scoring them. We did invite 3 firms in for a interview, which was an option that we included in the RFP. And they were really, well prepared, had solid choices, I would say. And we did also open the price proposals, and they all came in within the capital appropriation of $75,000. Ultimately, the majority of the committee, I use committee lightly, the review kind of team, recommended Weston and Sampson to work on this plan with us. And some of the highlights, they had a really well-prepared, comprehensive proposal. They had really extensive work working with local governments. They've been around for 125 years. And they've also done a lot of climate work recently with regional plans. And so when we're thinking about what we can accomplish in Concord and what we can accomplish kind of together with these other communities around us that care about these things, that was an exciting thing to learn about. They had a capable project team and strong technical experience, and were ultimately chosen. And so the recommendation went from the review team to the town manager, who accepted the recommendation, and we've notified Weston and Sampson that they've been selected. We've notified the other firms that they weren't, but we asked them to continue to work with us in the future, because they did bring a lot of effort, and we appreciated their time and thoughtful proposals that they developed. At this point, we will all be working on this plan very closely. We have to shift gears to finalize the contract, which I think will be happening soon with our procurement team. And I don't know, Shannon, if you have an update, if you had a chance to touch base with procurement on this one, regarding a timeline for that.
No, not yet.
Okay, so that we need to finalize the contract with them, and then we'll be looking to start to schedule, some of the look at the early tasks and get started. So just a thank you very much to the review team. Both Brad and Bob had so much to contribute. And also, of course, Mark Galis, who I don't know if he's in the room, but he had really great questions to contribute. The staff have done this in a lot of different, done these types of reviews for a lot of different projects, and had a lot of really, really helpful feedback. And I think that all in all, people were happy with the process and are looking forward to getting started. Now it's, just the beginning. So we're looking forward to moving on to the next steps.
On the subject of those thanks, I'd also like to echo her thanks to taking this on all of our behalf. And I would also like to seek the committee's formal approval to write thank you notes on behalf of the committee to the people who served on the evaluation team. Like, they really should get a thank you note, and it's better coming from all of us than say just me. So can I get your approbation, please, to
Yes.
Yeah,
write thank you notes on behalf of the whole committee?
absolutely.
Yes. I send those out to everybody, and Megan, if you could give me work addresses for the
Yes.
Staff, I can find Mark.
Okay.
Megan, are the proposals that they sent, those are public?
Yes.
So the committee could download the proposals, and the proposal outlines, you know, the set of tasks they envision doing. I think it's worth us understanding that.
I think it's worth us integrating any good ideas we find
Right.
from the not successful bidders that we may want to integrate, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't go to too much trouble, but you might find something.
Let's certainly see, yeah, having visibility would be nice to see them. Are they posted somewhere or?
I sent out Weston and Sampson's proposal to you all with the packet.
Okay.
We typically don't post these online, but if you are interested in seeing the others, I can send you like a SharePoint link to those too.
Could you please?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should have them available, and, you know, if you've got time and you want to read some reports,
Yeah.
some more reports.
Yeah.
Thank you. Megan, can you, understanding that we have not affected the contract yet, are there any things that you wish to signpost for the committee, for the coming, say, month to 6 weeks?
Well,
You do?
yeah, that's a good question. And Brad Hubbard Nelson and I connected this morning at the Transportation Forum. And I think it would be helpful to think about how exactly we're looking to incorporate the Climate Action Committee with staff on this plan update. And, we'll have a kickoff meeting and hear from the consultant, but if you all have ideas on how you'd like to be involved, I think that would be helpful. I think we're going to need everyone to participate and contribute to make this successful. And I think that's why I was so pleased to see such a strong review panel process and participation, because, we really have had early eyes on this from CMLP and natural resources and all these other areas. And I think we're going to need help from all of those, from boards and committees, from staff, to make this a plan that we all own as the town of Concord. So, is it having different people assigned to different components? Is it being prepared to share outreach opportunities within your networks, which is, a superpower of this committee, I think, and really trying to get the word out. Not really a specific action, but just, I think, thinking about how you'd like to best assist and shepherd and guide this. So when we're asked by, the consultants at the first kickoff about partnership and touch points, that we can all be prepared to answer those questions.
Right. So the proposal lays out a timeline of 12 months, but we think it might be better if we can do it all in like 9 months, compress it a little bit. But the first 2 months, first month 1 and 2 are, just getting up to speed, initial planning, reviewing progress.
And reviewing the past,
What?
reviewing the past work too.
Yeah, review of progress. And that review of progress involves the CAC.
Mm-hmm.
Probably January is my guess. Because that's kind of month 2 in their schedule, and month 1 is starting before December 1st, probably. So maybe we want to be thinking about who on the committee would be to appoint people for the different areas.
Well, and in point of fact, we have people actively working on behalf of the committee to do some of that review
Yeah.
already.
Right.
You know, we do have a bit of a head start on that. I do think if we are serious about trying to compress that timeline, we would absolutely have to step up and do some of that. You know, maybe even starting before June, right? So should we have it on our agenda to work through that? Maybe in our next month's
I
meeting?
think, yeah.
Yeah,
And should mention that so Weston and Sampson, the same team of people has done the preliminary and is working on a longer climate action plan for the greater Boston area. Mostly focusing, so a lot of it's focusing on disadvantaged communities and how they, you know, are plugged into climate action, but it covers our whole area. And that doesn't include adaptation and preparedness, that particular plan. But the other 4 areas are the areas of our plan. So it's likely that the topic, the major areas are kind of the same as our old plan. Because we could decide to do it differently. But I doubt we would. You know, the buildings, transportation, energy supply, stuff like that.
Brandon, like you were starting to have a thought.
I was just gonna say that it looks from their plan, spread over a year, that they would meet with us, they would participate in our meetings every other month. But as a practical matter, partly because it'd be shorter and just because it seems like we'd wanna not lose track of what's going on. I would think it would make sense to try to arrange for someone from their team to be in our meetings every time we meet while they're working, so that we could
Yeah,
stay in touch rather than like go a whole
2
two
months,
months, just.
especially if it's condensed over 9 months.
maybe somebody named John. I mean, John Bolduc is all part of their team. He was also part of our original climate action planning. So it's kind of a nice, thing.
It's worth floating that as a suggestion to them.
It might result from just collapsing the schedule.
Yeah, right.
I think the proposal only said 2 meetings with the CAC.
I think there's like 8 meetings with the CAC.
Okay, maybe I misread that, okay.
What, is what they laid out in their task.
But yeah, we get them here every meeting would be great.
And if it is in fact only every other meeting, then perhaps we will figure out a good communication strategy on those other times. I'm sure we'll be in more frequent touch than just seeing them every 60 days, you know? They're gonna, I presume, be living in townhouse at certain points. So we'll figure that out. But it would be nice to be regular.
Well, and if we're trying to stick with the open meeting law, we don't wanna have 3 or 4 of us chatting with them in the townhouse because they happen to be in town that day.
Not all at once, but we can do it person to person individually with them, and they become, or Megan or Shannon become the collection point. So that's the way that we accomplish that.
Yeah. And I think it's probably it's worth noting that Shannon is going to be the contract manager and the primary point person with the consultant. And that doesn't mean that I won't be in touch or you all won't be in touch, but I think it is helpful to identify that at the beginning so that they're you know, we have a clear strategy for communication. So she will be really leading this effort for all of us, and we will all be working together. And yeah, we'll talk more about the cadence of meetings and how to best use everyone's time to collect input, you know, and prioritize things and give feedback so that we're moving forward at a appropriate pace.
More on this, or shall we move on? Go ahead.
No, it does say in the text, the proposal, 2 in-person meetings and 2 virtual meetings for CAC.
I misread it, it was, yeah.
Yes, that's full,
That makes 4.
yeah,
Um,
so that's a minimum, so if we really wanna have someone here every meeting, we can request that, see what they say.
right.
Yeah.
You know, to some extent, it's a question of money, we're asking for a lot for this money, and they may say, that's a great idea, they may say. It doesn't fit within the scope or something, I don't,
Can't hurt, also.
yeah.
Great, well, acknowledging that the time is now 8:48 PM, I think that we should move on to the next thing on our agenda. Thank you for those great updates. It's so fine to be able to get this done on time and be feeling good about the vendor process and the vendor that we have in hand. So thank you. Fran has distributed a draft resolution to us. Before we get into it on that, are there substantive revisions or edits that anybody sent you in advance of this meeting that we need to get on the same page about?
Not that I picked up,
Okay,
so if someone sent me something and I missed it, they should speak up. I've identified a few things that would be word changes that might help. I think it's sort of too long. It'd be ideal if we could drop a few of these whereases or something, but I have not.
Right, I didn't have the time to go through it as much, but after our lunch, I did come up with a few thoughts. I don't think we should necessarily push it out this month. I guess we should talk about what's our strategy here. What do we, exactly from there? And who should it go to? This is something that we want to resolve, but even more impactful is the select board and town sign on and communicate with the DPU, right? And I think that's gonna take some prep.
so the original thought last month was, let's get the select board to do this. Right? Are you suggesting that this is the wrong type of vehicle to do that? Or are you suggesting that just not now and let's get our head together about exactly what the pacing and steps should be?
Much, so what I want the town to resolve to do is to make a plan to get off gas in the next 25 years. And to say, we're going to get started and work on neighborhood electrification, whatever it takes to do so. And making it clear, what getting off gas means ultimately, in 2050, we probably don't have a gas system. You can't have a gas system with 5% of the people on it. It would be ridiculously expensive. But this is kind of a new concept that is not, it's gonna take some getting used to sign on to that. Politically, this is a pretty hot thing for the town to sign on to. maybe, I wanted to do so, but I wanted to be ready, I don't know.
I guess I would observe that our existing climate action plan says we're gonna get to reach certain emission goals. And there's no conceivable way that you could do that without achieving all of these things as steps toward that. So if reducing emissions means not burning gas means the difficulty is if you just sort of wait for each house to randomly switch off gas, you end up with a few houses that are stuck in the middle and it's not sort of not, at some point it has to be planned. And so this is really quite general. It says we'd like to meet with National Grid to begin a planning process to rationalize this transition that we're going through.
Brad, I think Megan has her hand up.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I wanted to share that I mentioned this draft to the town manager when we met last week. And she recommended, she said she had been in touch with a representative from National Grid and suggested that I get in touch and see if they might be interested in connecting with the Climate Action Committee. And before I got the name, I actually was reached out. Their community engagement manager reached out to myself and some folks at the light plant asking to meet and discuss Concord's energy and sustainability goals, talk about our upcoming projects, potential collaborations on energy efficiency, electrification, or climate resilience. So we have not scheduled that yet, but I wanted to mention that to this committee that, you know, after an initial introduction, it might be, if you're interested, you know, could invite her to come to meet with the committee down the line. I also wanted to mention that I did share it around to some of my colleagues, and I haven't, just to make sure everyone is aware of this and to see if there's any concerns, particularly the part about like the leaks versus replacement statement. And, you know, just sharing that with the fire chief and, you know, and our engineering team. And I don't, you know, I don't know a lot about this. So I just wanted to kind of share it with my colleagues, and they did receive it when I sent it out, I think last week, but I haven't gotten a full response from everyone. I think there's a lot of priorities right now. But I can come at a future meeting and, you know, have a little bit more of feedback if the committee is interested in, you know, hearing from some staff that work on these things.
That's all excellent.
I have a question. I think it's really important that we have this well thought out transition. And this seems to support that. In here, it talks about neighborhood by neighborhood. Does that mean that literally we go target this neighborhood for this next couple of months or years? They would do the transition, they move to another neighborhood, and they do the transition? Or was that what it says?
That is one possibility.
Okay, and then.
Neighborhood being a general term. So, you know,
But the collection of homes in a particular area, they would all do the transition
it
together.
could be defined by the pipeline paths.
Yeah.
Or it could be defined by people wanting to work together.
And then within the neighborhood, you know, right now there are incentives to switch to electric heat pumps and so on. So they would get support to do that, all the applications and everything. Okay, and then also here.
Just on that point, I might say that part of the reason to be triggering the references to National Grid and the DPU is that it's quite likely that National Grid will be providing some cash to their customers to help them transition off of gas in an area where they're trying to retire the pipe.
Okay, there's not.
So there's money in it, in addition to all the other incentives for heat pumps, that National Grid would essentially help to finance.
Okay,
Working this thing through.
so is National Grid, like, what would National Grid, do they only provide gas or they also do other things?
Mostly they provide gas, but in the future, they might provide thermal energy, so that's part of
That's
what
what we're
we're,
talking about, thermal energy here.
that's part of what we're saying, is if they wanna work with the town, they could be a provider.
Yeah, I mean, this gotta get figured out.
The
Because we're running out
methane,
of time.
the methane companies see the writing on the wall
Yeah,
regarding their futures. And are actively taking steps both in the marketplace and on Beacon Hill to preserve their hides in a variety of ways. This helps them and says, we want to partner with
Yeah.
you to preserve your hide. Which, you know, there are pros and cons and moral hazard to consider in bailing out a methane company. But
Right.
it is a feasible option for us to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I think we should explore every option. And again, I think we have to move towards this transition, you know, because it can't just be haphazard, you know, fits and starts. It's gonna be if we can do a plan, it would be great.
Right.
Just the last thing to add to that too is if you're talking about a plan or neighborhood by neighborhood, you know, like a lot of the times we're trying to work with National Grid when the engineering department knows that they're gonna tear up a road and conduct work there. I know already that they're trying to work together on timelines like that. And, you know, you don't wanna tear up a road that was just freshly paved to do this work. And I know that really can upset residents, so something else to coordinate on.
Yeah, and I think, just to add, if I share, we've been talking in earlier meetings about what is the acronym of it? GSIP, yeah, and so the utilities are identifying many years in advance which pipes need to be replaced, right? So some of the strategy should be around that. And they've identified neighborhoods where alternatives could be placed, right? So it's sort of feeding into that strategy as well.
Right. I think this.
So I wanna ensure that we have both an efficient conversation here because it is about to be 9 o'clock and we do have more stuff to get to. I wanna get a sense of the other people that haven't spoken on this. Where your head is at about doing something like this, doing it now, doing it later. Candidly, because I haven't shared my opinion. I was ready to ratify this tonight. Either with some amendments if people wanted to fix some things or not. I'm ready to go on it now. If we want to be thinking about pacing, we're thinking about how this integrates into our action plan, or we're thinking about an alternative vehicle or alternative phrasing or anything like that. I want to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page on a direction. So, are there other thoughts on this to share?
Well, from just an idealistic perspective, right? You're going from selling gas in pipes to selling effectively water in pipes. As it's like selling bottled water and the economics of it. It's sort of a no-brainer for an energy company, right? Because you've got no like fuel import costs, even no like hazmat, you know, fines to consider, that kind of thing, right? So there's that sort of view of it, and there's the question of, is this something that we could consider doing as a town, as like a free enterprise fund kind of project collaboration with DPW and CMLP, a pilot maybe, something like that, and keep all of those resources in-house. That's more of an idealistic point of view because we don't own all of the existing networks, but I feel more obligation to throw it out there because if I were, you know, gonna live here 100 years from now, I'd wanna own all the utilities.
I sort of want to see how the conversation goes that Megan described. But that's really important.
We should have somebody in that meeting.
I think that's possible. I was gonna suggest that.
So Megan, would you be game to include Fran in that introductory meeting? So that he could, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
And if schedules don't work out or whatever, I bet you can find somebody else on the committee who can represent us. But since Fran's already put some thought and some words on the page, it makes the most sense for him.
Yeah.
That'd be
for him.
great.
Cool. All right, so not now. That's the sense of the group.
I mean,
I understand, I haven't had a chance to look at it.
I would be ready to vote on this. I mean, assuming there's some fill in the names and numbers that need to go in, assuming we can approve something and then it'd be edited afterwards with the correct factual data. I'd be for moving it forward. I mean, you know, I'm not for kicking the can down the road generally, and I think it's really well written, thoughtful.
You're kicking the can. You wanna see what
Kicking it at
the
least.
community relations liaison has to say to us.
Kicking it for a month.
Even though I didn't read it, if Fran wrote it, I would vote for it. That's an
I mean. One thing that you could do with something like this is we could forward it to the select board and say. We think you should. Undertake this resolution.
Wendy, we think you should undertake this resolution. Do you have a copy of it?
Yes, I have lots of questions about it.
Okay. So, we're not taking I'm not hearing complete consensus on either the scope, the wording, or the strategy. I'm hearing general favorable sentiment toward this concept, but not necessarily at this level of detail or necessarily right now.
I have one question on this. Did we consider adapting the pipelines for hydrogen use? I'm not a big fan of hydrogen, but I know there's a lot of stuff out there that they want to transition pipelines for hydrogen.
Yeah, don't light any matches in your house.
I thought that was kind of a dead proposal.
Is that right?
because I don't know, but I mean that, they were walking around. Talking about either hydrogen or some kind of other combustible fuel blend.
No.
And let's pipe that into people's homes, and that didn't go over with Charlie Baker's DPU, and it's certainly not gonna go over with Maura Healy's DPU. So I don't see that as.
You don't hear people talking about that. Yeah.
But I'm also not in that building every day now, so
Right.
I don't know. I don't think that that's the future in this Commonwealth.
Right.
Or else they would be farther along in it by now. It's been 10 years since they started floating that idea. But maybe we could ask at that meeting, maybe, or at a subsequent meeting if we don't want to be throwing bombs. If there's a way to kind of talk about this in some capacity, that we want to be serious about this direction, I think that would be an appropriate thing to be communicating to you at this juncture.
I'm interested to know, one of the other select board members thinks who works for Grid. Who wouldn't actually be able to weigh in on this, probably under any conditions, but it would be interesting to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk to Cameron about it?
Yeah, I mean, I want to work with them rather than pick a fight with them, and part of this, part of my worry is when you put a stake in the ground, it could be construed as, not wanting to work with. That's my strategic work.
All right, well, let's engage over the course of the next month in some strategery.
I have one comment on this.
Go ahead.
In here, they mentioned, several sources of electric heat, network geothermal, heat pumps and so on. It doesn't mention electric thermal storage. So, I have an ETS system. I'm just curious, what is wrong with ETS systems? Because we are storing peak energy at night.
Yeah.
Off energy, non-peak energy at night. So it seems it's really important to have storage.
It's a form, I mean, it could be included. But it's, without a heat pump involved, it's very inefficient. In the sense of the actual conversion of electricity to heat.
Okay.
It's very efficient in terms of the time of day and so forth. So from a system management, so I don't have any objection to including it as a,
I'm not trying to be self-serving, 'cause I think I'm gonna eventually convert to heat pumps, but, there are, you know, a moderate number of ETS people,
yeah,
and, again, I think it's providing storage of off-peak
Yeah,
energy, it's.
this is certainly not suggesting that any of those things be decommissioned.
Right, it's just gonna, if everybody got on ATS, it would tax the grid terribly. As soon as we were, in the winter, so-called winter peaking scenario. That's where. Something like the geothermal is the best, because all of a sudden you use 5 times less electricity during those.
Right.
Uh,
And on the subject of geothermal, do we have any other updates on activities regarding either GSEP or non-pipeline alternatives?
Yeah, I can mention a couple of meetings we had. We had a meeting last week, with 3 of us talking about the potential GSEP project in the Elsinore Street neighborhood. And that's one which National Grid had identified a pipe that needed to be replaced. They didn't consider that a non-pipeline alternative, but the research that Ken and Brand did, right, or at least that was Ken that I was talking with, indicated that if you did 80 homes or something like that, including 4 apartment buildings, it might be a really good neighborhood electrification project. You could retire a bit of, this could be a test case of retiring a piece of the networks if you were able to get everybody on board. But these kinds of projects have to go pretty quickly, decisions that would have to be made, and did I get that pretty much right? It was 43 buildings. 6 apartment buildings. I got some of it wrong. And that's a place where National Grid is planning to spend $1.5 million to replace the pipe. So that's the kind of money that, if it could be used instead to have people electrify, presumably with heat pumps, with air source heat pumps or something, but you could, it's a fair chunk of cash.
So one of the things that will happen, or it has just happened in this proceeding in Boston at the DPU, is the DPU asked for comments on the plans that the utilities have filed. So the plan that National Grid filed included this Elsinore Street location as a pipeline replacement. So anybody in the state, including us or the select board or others, could file a comment to the DPU and say, well, we're interested in actually trying to use the Elsinore Street location as a non-pipeline alternative.
What would the timeline be on the comment?
Comments, I think, are due by the middle of November or December. It's
Sorry, I'm just
Thank you.
opening up, leave it says that they're open now, I think, or starting on.
just recently,
Yeah, just wrote, and then they're due by 5 PM on December 23rd.
funny day.
Yeah, it's a funny day. I wouldn't wait
So
that long.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we would be able to have a committee signed letter get to them before that deadline if we were to sign that letter in our next meeting.
I had sort of been thinking that if we were all really psyched about this as a general sort of statement of policy and approach, the next step might be to say, all right, well, consistent with that, we'd like to file some comments with the DPU about this particular section of pipe.
But we can.
But we
do
could
that
dispense with this and just do that.
Well, I think we should do that anyway, regardless of the direction we go with this.
Yeah, me too.
So who wants to write that comment?
there's a couple of tricky things about it. One is that there are people who live there. And we or people like Mothers Out Front out there who are active in this area might want to talk to some of them to see if any of them are interested, because they could also file comments and say, I live in this area, I'm interested in a heat pump, I'd like to participate, please take that into consideration. The other angle is that I think we would need to do a little bit more research on trying to understand why National Grid said it wasn't a feasible location. They said there's something downstream, but it's a loop. There's nothing downstream. So it sounds as if there's some miscommunication about something. And I don't know this DPU docket well enough to know whether that's something we would need or be well advised to try to understand better now, or just send in a letter to the department saying we don't see why this isn't a good place. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't say something in English, simple, and let the lawyers deal with it. We don't necessarily need to have a lot of technical and legal analysis done.
Ken, do you know offhand whether Concord Check or Mothers Out Front has an interest in talking with some neighbors?
Maybe,
Or the bandwidth to do it?
that's my answer. I'll have somebody Friday.
Okay, great. That would be.
The challenge also is that a lot of them are in 6 apartment buildings.
Mhm.
And so it would be of interest to talk to the owner of the apartment buildings as well. I did just figure out someone who's related to the family that owns the building, but I don't actually know that.
So in the interest of our time, I want to make sure that we've got good marching orders for people on this so that we can be ready to take action in December. So we're gonna have at least an initial talk with our friends and Mothers Out Front.
Yeah, we can make comments even if they're not fully informed,
Mhm.
but having talked to each and every person and stuff like that, I think it's worth doing.
So who can draft a statement for us to be reviewing at our next meeting? Okay, great, thank you. More homework for you.
Yeah, thank you.
2 meetings in a row, that's great. All right. Anyone else on this? All right, it's 9:15. Let's get through the last bit of our agenda fast, eh? Other updates on network geothermal, that's item A.
Yeah, we had a meeting yesterday, with like 8 of us, including, Peter Loth from the MCI Land Use Planning Subcommittee or Committee. And, the topic was about the planning process for MCI and how to preserve the option of a geothermal network, for the developer. And it turns out there we won't have really any much clarity for 2 to 3 years from now. And the reason, one of the concerns is there's a network of steam tunnels on the property. And the committee doesn't actually know where they are. The state has not told us, purposely not informed. Because this is real estate that they want to be able to transfer, and do well for the residents of the state, so they didn't divulge anything that certain things. And the steam tunnels could be useful for a geothermal network, but they're most undoubtedly lined with asbestos, so they're a hazard as well. So that's one factor, and there may be other hazardous materials. Although this was never used as a factory, as far as I know, but so there's. The MCI project is gonna take place
We hoped.
quickly at some point, but there's various things like the Route 2, the rotary and stuff like that kind of have to be sorted out for lots of plans take place. They're really gonna work on getting the zoning figured out for a town meeting, not this coming one, is what they're gonna try to do. But one of the things that we did decide, talk about yesterday was, since the wastewater treatment plant there our Concord Public Works is already looking at that, would be interesting to have a conversation with Alan Cathcart about, what would it mean for that potentially to be a geothermal resource? Because that's kind of a place you could extract heat from, regularly and, you know, would reduce the cost of the project. You wouldn't have to drill so many wells. So I think we're gonna try to schedule a conversation with Alan Cathcart at some point before too long.
Excellent.
Maybe in the next
Yeah.
month.
Would that be through anaerobic digestion of sewage, or, I mean, because the regular aerobic,
Well, it's just, there's a lot of liquid there.
there's a lot of liquid, oh, I see from just the ambient temperature, of the wastewater.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
It's extracting the heat from the wastewater.
yeah.
That's great, yeah, talking about methane recovery or something.
And this was actually identified in the vision, in the attachments to the vision document.
Also, two other things I wanted to mention, I don't want to take too long. There's an upcoming webinar from Eversource on the Framingham project. When is that? Oh, it's coming up, I think it's in December. I can send a link around. But they're gonna talk about everything they've learned in terms of, all the conversions of homes and the data they've taken and stuff like that.
Please do send that around when you have it.
Yeah, I will send that. And then, I got an email from, Jeremy Koo from MAPC about applying for a technical assistance program funding. Now, they already have some funding set aside for, planning geothermal network in MLP communities. Because we, like Wellesley and other communities that have MLPs, but National Grid Gas have this unique challenge of how it works with two utilities. So that would be work that could take place, that would be a study that could take place with help from him and MAPC in the spring. But if we were to apply, so, if we were to apply, there's a deadline on, December 8th for applying for some of this technical assistance, funding. And, I'm gonna have a call with him on Friday. Morning.
Is there any support that you would want from anybody on that?
No, I mean, but might be worth having, anybody who wanted to join that call. Could do it, I don't want to make a big thing, but, just to understand what it would be to apply for the funding, what we would use it for. It could be that, since the town would be applying for assistance, maybe Megan would want to be on that call, or someone. Or someone from the life plant, I don't know. Yeah, maybe someone from the life plant. I just got the email before the meeting. I'll set it up and send an email around to see who would want to join that.
And when you do that, BCC us.
Practice,
And everybody will get back to you individually and not be replying all. Excellent. Anybody else on network geothermal? Hearing nobody, let's talk very, very quickly about schools. We do not have solar panels on the middle school building.
But didn't we just learn today that they got approved and they're moving forward with canopy? No?
Rooftop solar. CMLP got 2 bids.
Uh-huh.
Felt that neither one worked for them. did not satisfy the requirements. And they are choosing not to move forward at this time on rooftop solar at the middle school building. It is the opinion of the light board that they need better partnership from the school committee. It is the opinion of the school committee that they have been a good partner.
Oh, wow.
So the posture of CMLP and the light board at this time is that they need to take a beat. They need to figure out what's the best way to move forward so that they can get middle school solar right. So that will take even longer than had been communicated to us.
Where can we find specifics on this?
Where can you find specifics on what CMLP wants to do, on what the light board wants to do, on what
From
the
this
school committee's done?
conclusion by CMLP, is there a meeting that we?
Yeah, I think there's the most recent meeting is posted online.
And that's where it was discussed and voted on, or?
Well, there wasn't a vote,
Oh, but just-
this was Jason Bulger announcing to the light board what their status needed to be.
Huh.
You know, you might read the next couple of Concord Bridges and it may come out in there, whatever you wanna chase, but yeah, you could watch the last light board meeting. Prior school committee meetings where they took this up.
Is it on the agenda? Tonight was a school committee meeting, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
There is one tonight.
There was one, and
There's no.
because of the chair's breakfast, Tracy was not have him speak to it.
So-
tonight.
So there may be
So there
breaking
may be
news that
something
we're not
tonight.
privy to
Just
yet.
because, well, you know, we just were at a meeting this morning and I thought we got different news, so. I
That is ground mounted though, that is not
Rooftop.
mounted.
Okay, so the canopy, the parking may be moving forward. It's a different conversation.
Different conversation.
That should have happened at the same RP meeting also.
Yeah, it seems like it's all the same, I mean, it should be in the same conversation.
I
Yeah.
don't think they were doing that, but.
Okay, well, I don't wanna spread rumors, it's just because I'd like to go to the source, to Shelley's point, yeah.
Perhaps I should know this, who's gonna pay for that? Was CMLP gonna pay for that, or are they gonna bring an outside company in? Lease it or something? We don't know,
I don't know.
okay,
It had been a point of discussion early in the process. Of whether this was going to be something that the school would pay for and benefit from, or whether this is something the utility would pay for and benefit from.
okay, so it's nothing was solved.
But you know what, I can tell you that solar was gonna be CMLP, and it would be ratepayers paying for it. And there was a return on investment on.
Accruing to CMLP
Well, to ratepayers.
to ratepayers.
So I don't know if it was a cost or what the reason was, we should read the meeting notes, I guess.
The vendor issue was they couldn't, the RFPs, they didn't meet their.
They didn't
criteria.
satisfy the RFPs.
Okay.
What you will find if you review the record is controversy.
But is it the case that no one has actually made a decision to stop the project? They're just.
The
they're saying
current
they're gonna
posture
figure out
is
what
they
to
are
do.
gonna figure out what to do, and I think there are multiple avenues to get this right still. It's going to be about whether we can all play well together. Do we have any updates on connecting to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail or composting? I know that you'd like to tell us about Youth Climate Solutions, but I'd like to get the other two things first.
For composting in the schools, first 2 months this year, they're up 5.5 tons over last year, so that's improving nicely. So they're hitting their stride. It's been 1 year that they have composting going in every school building. So that's good news. The CCHS high school green and oh my gosh, Sunrise Movement folks are leading the charge, the students, by directing composting in cafeteria at lunchtime. In exchange for community service hours. So, yeah, it's working out well. For the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail connector, a bunch of folks are working on a more granular plan to go back to the school committee and present that to hopefully get to yes. There's a designer or two landscape designers in town working to pro bono design work for the project. And when we can get there.
Is there a timeframe on when to go back?
Hopefully by January.
You wanna tell us about Youth Climate Solutions?
Yeah, there's, so this is the, program that Mass Energize is running. There's two teams from, CCHS that signed up. And, both of them with, Rebecca Meeks as the advisor. And, so far, there's been a series of webinars that they've attended. There was an introductory one and one on clean energy technologies and one on community engagement. I've reached out to Ms. Meeks and offered to go talk to the students again. The topics that they had originally picked as, we want to work on this, weren't actually clean energy technologies. They were pollinator gardening and reducing plastic use, which are good projects, but they're not necessarily appropriate for the challenge. So I want to suggest some items for them that might interact with our climate action plan or something, engaging residents on technology or something. Maybe that next week.
Anybody else have anything to say on our schools? Transportation. Last substantive item on our agenda, as I'm sure you all are aware, TAC has been doing a lot over the past month. The rollout of the transportation survey has happened. 2 sessions today. Several of us were there in the morning. I don't know who was there tonight. I guess again we'll find out. I think there is keen interest on TAC to ensure that they are in line with sustainability. Did they change their charge to include sustainability in their mandate?
Yes, the last meeting.
The last meeting they
They
voted to
changed
do
their
it.
mission and included sustainability as a term.
So we should expect a vibrant partnership as we do our transportation components of our plan. And the seemed to me, the process today at the public workshops was just wonderful. To be able to get some kind of nuanced sticker-based input from the public is good, I think that they've got a lot of options in front of them, and they need our input and our assistance as we think about reducing vehicle mileage traveled and how to make people feel safe to do something other than take a single occupant vehicle. So we've got some work to do too on that as they continue.
Yeah.
Anybody else on transportation?
Well, on that note, I know it's late, I just wanted to float the situation with the Baker Avenue design plans that I've been aware of, and some of you might have heard that too. So I guess there's a plan to redesign the Baker Ave intersection. And the new design doesn't include any like accommodations. In fact, it sort of pinch points that intersection, which is a design that's killed somebody recently in Brookline, and that was used. So it's sort of making the space more dangerous there. So I guess my question is, on the policy front, we've got the Climate Action Committee, and then we've got, a decade of bike and pedestrian infrastructure recommendations to look at. And then we also have a complete streets program list with and on that list is a directive to make bike lanes both on Baker Ave and on 62. Right. So my concern is the lack of coordination between policy and design is one of them. Second concern would be the waste of time and money. Because this is one of the highest value projects in the near future for the road construction in the town. And, it doesn't, you'd have to completely redo it when you go back and then implement the complete streets project. That on the list, you know what I mean, with the bike lanes. So there's, I guess, there seems to me to be a disconnect between policy and then these concrete future plans like complete streets and then current projects. So I guess, is there anything that we as a committee could recommend to bridge the gap so that the climate policy improvements that we recommend for car free infrastructure that actually get implemented?
Yeah. Is that Baker Avenue, is that at 62 or is that at Route 2?
62.
Okay,
So, I mean, don't these projects need to? Is there some sort of decision tree or checklist of like making sure that it's aligned with the policy? I mean, how do they get approved if they're not in line with policy? I guess that's the question. I don't know how these things happen. At the implementation stage.
That's what I'm asking, like, why is there no connection between the policy and the implementation?
Do they just go to the low bidder on these things? On the highway projects?
I mean,
Is our concern to try to get bike infrastructure implemented at Baker Ave intersection right away before somebody wastes money making it difficult? Or to solve this policy problem going forward? For
I
both.
mean, it's both, sounds like it's both,
You want someone driving the bus.
yeah.
And nobody
Who's
driving the bus.
Yeah.
We should ask Public Works who's driving the bus.
I think,
See what they said.
I think Assistant Town Engineer Justin Richardson is driving the bus. There is a project webpage that I'm looking at right now that I can send to you all tomorrow when I send you the other proposals that we received. His contact information is on here. It has some project updates, the designer group they're working with, so I feel like that's a good starting point. You know, we could send either as individuals or the committee at the next meeting could send one correspondence to Justin, whichever you prefer. But I would say that's the place to start.
Is that something that you have the desire and bandwidth to pursue?
A letter from us.
Well, I was thinking just for you to have a person-to-person conversation and say who's driving the bus.
well, shouldn't be tax
So,
doing that? I mean,
it's my understanding they weren't consulted on it.
On that particular project.
right,
Part of the point with the whole exercise. On reviewing the way that we. Do our decisions on transportation, their whole process is to try to get that kind of stuff better. So maybe it would be ideal. For TAC to be doing this, maybe.
yeah,
They already have and we don't know. I don't think that it's outside of our mandate. Because these mobility issues and specifically mobility issues that get single occupant vehicles off the road.
Yeah.
Fall within the four corners of the climate action plan.
right, but I would coordinate a response with somebody on tax.
Well, we're just asking questions right now, right? I don't think it hurts for her to ask a question.
Oh, that doesn't touch us.
Would it be possible to simply ask, what is the plan for bike infrastructure at this intersection? Or
Well, you can see the plan online, there's
there's nothing?
nothing for that.
When are they, okay, when are they doing this? What's the timeline? Do you know? The striking ground?
I don't know exactly what.
Shovels are in the ground at that intersection now, they're laying
Now,
conduit.
Grid is doing work right now there, and so the design work would follow after some utility work.
After they replace that conduit with new 50-year pipeline.
It's
Well,
a
they actually removed
gigantic
it, some of it
pipeline.
Actually, they removed someone, that's next to it. Right next to it. But can I just tell you that there is a larger, like who's coordinating and how, there was a meeting. It, you know, we did a town meeting, approved 25 million for roads and another 2.5 million for bike safety. There's been efforts to figure out how are we gonna look at all these projects, prioritize them, and coordinate across different committees on the input on that. So I think there is a revised process moving forward on projects, but they're getting that inventory into a big database, or be on GIS, and everyone can see what the priorities and decisions are. But on this specific project, I would just get your feedback into the project team now. Don't wait, just send it in. I can't say it's gonna change it, but my understanding is the design work is in the spring after National Grid does their work, so.
So it would not be too late to say, hey, you've got this way down on this priority list here.
Well,
Let's integrate it into the project now.
well, I mean, ask for it. I mean, I just, bike lanes, it's more than this intersection, right? You want bike lanes on the whole road, so, but it doesn't hurt to comment and let them know. And see what they can do, but maybe it's being considered, maybe Jack's already talked about it, I'm just not sure. But. Some comments on this.
I will send a comment. My concern is that it's systemic. Because, the bike lanes, the part of the Complete Streets program, are recommended from Concord Center to, West Concord Center.
Right.
And, that those, the repaving of that piece of Main Street that wasn't integrated, so I don't know.
And part of all the activity from today, this morning's meeting and this afternoon's getting everyone's community input is part of the process of improving our process, so, and looking at priorities, so.
Yeah.
And I don't know the timeline for follow up on that, but I'm sure, so.
Right, we have one member of the public who has not had much to say. Do you have any public comments?
No, I'm just here learning and want to support the effort. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you for being here and sitting through a late running meeting. Does the chair hear a motion to adjourn the meeting next on the third Wednesday of December at 7 p.m. in this room? And virtually. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.